You are listening to Bedtime Dreamy Tales. Share and subscribe our channel. Story title: The Honest Woodcutter. Once upon a time, nestled far away in the serene hills, there was a very small mountain village named Eldertree. This village was home to an old woodcutter named Magnus. Magnus lived a simple and content life, devoted entirely to working hard to provide for his beloved family. Each day, at the break of dawn, Magnus would kiss his wife Hilda and his two children, Eric and Ingrid, before setting off to the forest. Magnus had spent his entire life in the village, mastering the craft of woodcutting. He knew every tree and every bend in the river by heart. Next to the great mountain river, there was a special place where Magnus would cut down trees and send them downriver to a hamlet by a tranquil lake. The townspeople of the hamlet would catch the logs and skillfully transform them into bowls, furniture, and other useful items. The partnership between the mountain village and the lakeside hamlet had lasted for generations, fostering a deep bond of trust and friendship. One crisp morning, as Magnus was chopping down a tall, sturdy tree, his trusty axe slipped out of his hand. It twirled in the air before plunging into the fast-flowing river. Magnus watched in horror as the current carried his axe away. The river was swift and treacherous, and Magnus knew it was too dangerous to try and retrieve it. Despair washed over him, and he paced along the riverbank, weeping. His heart felt heavy, for he knew his livelihood depended on that axe. As fate would have it, Mercury, the god of wealth and good fortune, was passing by. Dressed in his shimmering robe, with wings on his sandals and helmet, Mercury heard the woodcutter's cries and felt a pang of compassion. He descended gracefully from the sky and approached the weeping Magnus. "Why do you cry, good woodcutter?" Mercury asked, his voice gentle and kind. Magnus, surprised by the sudden appearance of the divine being, quickly explained his predicament. "I have lost my only axe in the river, and without it, I cannot cut wood to feed my family. It was an old worn axe, but it was perfect for me." Mercury nodded thoughtfully and decided to help the honest woodcutter. He reached into the water and pulled out a magnificent golden axe, its blade gleaming in the sunlight. "Is this your axe?" Mercury inquired. Magnus shook his head. "Thank you, Mercury, but this is not my axe. This axe is beautiful, but my old one fit my hands perfectly. Could you please look in the water again and see what else you can find?" Mercury, impressed by the woodcutter's honesty, dipped his hand into the river once more and retrieved a stunning silver axe. He presented it to Magnus, who once again shook his head. "No, Mercury, this is not my axe either," Magnus said. "Please, could you try one last time?" With a nod, Mercury reached into the water a third time and pulled out an old, worn axe with a wooden handle. It was precisely the axe that Magnus had lost. Upon seeing it, Magnus's eyes lit up with joy. "That's my axe! My beautiful axe!" Magnus exclaimed, ecstatic. Mercury smiled, pleased with the woodcutter's honesty. "I admire your honesty, Magnus. Because of your virtue, you shall keep all 3 axes." With a wave of his hand, Mercury bestowed the golden and silver axes upon the grateful woodcutter. Magnus returned home, his heart brimming with gratitude and excitement. He couldn't wait to share the incredible news with Hilda, Eric, and Ingrid. When he arrived, his family gathered around him, eyes wide with curiosity as he recounted his encounter with Mercury and the miraculous gift he had received. Together, they decided to test the golden axe. Magnus raised the gleaming tool and struck a log in their backyard. To their amazement, the wood doubled with each stroke of the golden axe. They tried the silver axe next, which split the wood effortlessly, leaving it perfectly smooth and ready for use. The news of the miraculous axes spread like wildfire through Eldertree. Neighbours and friends flocked to Magnus's home to witness the magic for themselves. Everyone was in awe of the woodcutter's good fortune, and they marvelled at the power of the divine gift. Magnus, ever humble, shared his story and expressed his gratitude to Mercury for his kindness. However, not everyone in the village was content with just witnessing the miracle. One of Magnus's neighbours, a greedy man named Lars, saw an opportunity to gain wealth and power for himself. Consumed by envy, Lars devised a plan to obtain a magical axe of his own. Early the next morning, Lars set off for the woods by the river, carrying his own axe. He stood by the riverbank and, with a dramatic wail, threw his axe into the water. He cried out, hoping to attract Mercury's attention. As expected, Mercury appeared, curious to find out what had happened. "Why do you cry, Woodcutter?" Mercury asked, his eyes narrowing slightly. Lars, pretending to be distraught, replied, "I have lost my only axe in the river, and without it, I cannot cut wood to feed my family." Mercury, wanting to help, reached into the river and pulled out a golden axe. "Is this your axe?" he asked. "Yes, that's my axe," Lars shouted eagerly, reaching for the golden axe. But Mercury, sensing the man's deceit, frowned. He took the golden axe back and made it disappear. "You lie, and your greed has betrayed you," Mercury said sternly. "I will not tolerate dishonesty." Desperate, Lars pleaded, "Please, won't you at least retrieve my old axe for me?" Mercury's expression remained stern. "Greed is not easily forgiven," he replied, refusing to reach into the river again. Lars's axe remained at the bottom of the brook forever. The villagers of Eldertree soon learned of Lars's fate, and the tale of the honest woodcutter and the greedy neighbour became a legend. No one ever dared to trick Mercury again, knowing that honesty and integrity were rewarded while greed and deceit were met with severe consequences. As for Magnus, he continued to live a humble and content life, using his newfound wealth to help his village. With the golden and silver axes, he provided more wood than ever before, ensuring that the villagers always had what they needed. The bond between Eldertree and the lakeside hamlet grew even stronger, and the story of the honest woodcutter was told for generations, reminding everyone of the value of honesty and the dangers of greed. If you like this story, please give this video a like. For more stories, go to bedtimedreamytales.com. See you in the next story.